Hey everyone, this is Business Beer and IP. That's me, a vlog brought to you by Henry Martin Law. I'm Hank Abramson, and today I just want to give you a quick tip about something you might consider in your next commercial lease. With COVID still going on and the market being totally unpredictable, the last thing that you want to do is get into a long-term lease with no out. It could be that we're stuck for a long time working from home, or at least in large part from home, without being able to go into the office space. And there may be financial circumstances where you just can't keep up a space any longer because business may have declined. The last thing that you want to do then is get stuck in a 10-year lease with no way out. So one of the things that you should think about doing is putting some sort of kick-out clause in the commercial lease, or work on the force majeure provisions where it allows you out of the lease should a pandemic or epidemic, for example, keep you from going into the office space for a certain amount of time. There are a couple things that I do for my clients along these lines. So first, you could have a kick-out clause where you may have a certain buyout figure where you can get out of the lease early. It may hurt to come up with that amount of money, but perhaps you can spread it out over time through installment payments. Or maybe it can be a greatly reduced amount than you would otherwise owe. Typically under a lease, for example, if you had a 10-year long term and you got out at year 5, you would still be obligated for the remaining amount for the 5 years. Now, if the landlord would be able to re-let the space, that liability might be mitigated, could be mitigated altogether because there's a new tenant paying the full amount. Or if the new tenant is paying a lesser amount, or the space sits empty for a certain amount of time before a new tenant comes in, you could be liable for the difference in the rental amounts, or that amount outstanding for the time that the space sits empty. So you certainly don't want to do that. So if you can get a kick-out clause, at least you have potentially a manageable and known number that you know you have to come up with a certain amount of money, but your overall obligation might be a great deal less. The other thing you could do, as I said, is work on the force majeure provision. This is the provision that you see typically at the end of the lease, talking about getting out from performing the lease for either party in the circumstance that something beyond the control of the parties occurs, like floods and hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, things like that. Those are the typical provisions. But in the COVID age, sometimes you want to now put in terms like including epidemic and pandemic. Those are things that are totally out of your control. And if the government agency comes in and tells you that you cannot go to the workplace anymore, it's a tough position to continue to pay rent while you cannot, by government rule, go into the workplace. So that might be an opportunity to be able to get out of the lease, or ask for some sort of rent abatement for a particular period of time, whether that's total abatement and forgiveness, or whether that's just a deferral and that amount is tacked on to the end of your lease. That can be another way to do it, to prevent you from getting into financial trouble at this point, although it does extend the lease ultimately and retains your total obligation to pay that certain amount due under the lease. That can be fair for both parties, and so that's something that you may want to talk to your landlord about if you're already in a lease, either rent abatement or deferral. So those are a couple of tips I have for you for working on either your current or next commercial lease during COVID times. Hopefully this all resolves soon enough and we can all go back to the workplace and we don't have to worry about adjusting for COVID much longer. But while it's still here, those are a couple things that you can do to help your business out. So again, I'm Hank Abramson with Business Beer and IP, a vlog brought to you by Henry Martin Law, and hope you enjoyed the content. Thank you.